This seems to just keep on happening. You get a game that has some momentum behind it, gamers are intrigued, they're keeping an open mind, they want to see more, and then the devs just completely shoot themselves in the foot. They torpedo any audience positivity, enthusiasm around the game, and suddenly there's no interest anymore. It all just kind of disappears. This obviously happened with Avowed not long ago. You had some people, I think, who were genuinely intrigued. They were willing to give it a chance. And then the devs went completely mask off, admitted that they hate their audience for the most part, and now any excitement that was there seems to be basically gone. Any benefit of the doubt that anyone was willing to give the devs is over. No one cares about it anymore. Avowed, probably the least hyped game of 2025 at this point. That's how bad the Avowed stuff was with the art director and everything like that. Witcher 4, sadly, it seems like they're headed down the same path, and I want to make it clear it's nowhere near as bad yet as the Avowed stuff. I think there's been just a handful of sort of mini controversies. None of them by themselves are really that big of a deal, but I think the developers, I think CD Projekt Red, they need to tread carefully, because we've seen how when negative reception just riles up those red flags that people see in a game, they can just result in a domino effect of negativity around your game. And once that sets in, once all that negative commentary starts, it's very difficult to come back for that. People trust their first impression, their first look at something. Very difficult to change people's minds down the track. The first impression matters. And with Witcher 4, with the trailer that was shown, Ciri and everything like that, I think that CD Projekt Red have gotten off to a bad start. Now, I will say that the first trailer, I didn't really give it a lot of thought. I really didn't think that Ciri looked as bad in comparison to, like, the Naughty Dog trailer, that game, Jade, or whatever that character's name is. I have no interest in looking into it. That looked genuinely awful and clearly coming from the minds of deranged people who do hate their audience and see themselves as above gaming, above gamers. Like Neil Druckmann and co. They're just weirdos at this point. They used to make some good stuff. Crash Bandicoot, was he there for that? The Last of Us Part 1 was alright, but they've gone off the deep end. That stuff is real bad. So seeing The Witcher 4 and Ciri compared to that, wasn't too keen on it. But unfortunately, since then, I think CD Projekt Red, things have just gone from maybe not so great to worse. And that is sort of playing into the hands of people who were concerned about Ciri and the direction perhaps of Witcher 4. Those people are being proven right. So you can't blame them really for being concerned. It just seems like any time anyone identifies red flags, even if someone like me says, oh, I don't think it looks so bad at this point, the side that's concerned gets proven right time and time again. So it's concerning for CD Projekt Red. And just to give some examples, there's probably more, but these are the ones that I've seen floating around. Again, none of them individually I think are that bad, like Avowed art director level bad, but if we keep seeing more of this, it's a bleak picture for The Witcher 4, and there was this thing with Fortnite, some sort of tie-in, like that's what Fortnite seems to be these days, just basically people making cameos from different movies, other game franchises, real life, and so on. It's kind of interesting. Obviously, I've got zero interest in Fortnite. Most people watching this video probably in the same boat, but I do think it's kind of interesting how they keep the momentum for that game going. Like, most games die out. People move on to something else. It seems to keep going, though. Will it ever die? Who knows? But basically, they had Johnny Silverhand in the game as a cameo, something like that. They also had V, main character of Cyberpunk 2077. The weird thing is, though, they only had the female V. The male V is nowhere to be seen, and the way people are talking about it, the way it's worded, is like male V doesn't exist. And that's a little strange to me, because from my perspective, female V doesn't exist, because I've played the game a few times, 2 full playthroughs, so I've spent sort of hundreds of hours through the game, and I've always chosen male V. I think, again, most people watching this video are probably in the same boat. We tend to just pick our gender, who we might relate best to. So, always male V apparently doesn't exist, at least in the Fortnite universe. And it's not the biggest deal in the world. I mean, who knows why this happened, but again, people, they've kind of just got their guard up because we see all these game companies where there's so many devs who hate the average gamer. People who just want something normal and to play something for entertainment, kick back, not be talked down to, propaganda and all that. So if you're looking at it pessimistically, it's kind of like, all right, so did the devs just decide internally, no, we don't want male V because that suggests bad, toxic, male gamers, we don't like them, we're just going to have female V, and all marketing talk from now on is just going to be about female V. We're moving on from male V. That's kind of where the concern comes from, and I can't blame people, because when I sort of played down Ciri, for instance, it's just been more bad news. Things headed in the wrong direction for CD Projekt Red, The Witcher 4, and so on. This is one example. Then you have this stuff about romances in The Witcher 4, where it talks about CD Projekt Red has confirmed romance will play a role in The Witcher 4, ensuring a meaningful narrative experience. The shift in protagonist offers developers freedom to explore non-traditional relationships, setting high expectations for The Witcher 4. My first thought just reading that is, it always seems like whenever there's a female protagonist put in the game, and it's being made by people, the usual suspects, the blue hairs, the pink hairs from formerly Twitter, like every time there's a female protagonist, it seems like they have to be a lesbian, or the option's got to be there. We've got to make this happen. Now, again, this isn't the biggest deal in the world. In fact, it may even only be speculation, given it mentions here that the possibility of non-traditional relationships was speculation from a website called Game Rant. So maybe it's just the writers at Game Rant with their own fantasies, given most of these journalists don't care about games. They're just trying to propagandize, talk about their own political stuff. So maybe they're desperate for non-traditional relationships and they think talking about it will pressure CD Projekt Red to put that stuff in the game. Hopefully, CD Projekt just focus on making the best Witcher 4 possible. Hopefully, Ciri is her own genuine character, feels like a real person, and doesn't just exist to pander to the most deranged people on the internet, because that's what it seems like used to happen all the time. Game dev studios, movie studios, and so on. It seemed like the studios themselves weren't always the problem. They did just want to make a good entertainment product. But then they just believed the bullshit online. They believed that a loud minority of people on Twitter, when this used to happen years ago, when people would blow up because, oh, there isn't enough DEI stuff in the game or the movie or whatever, or someone on the team said something sexist, apparently. They really said nothing. It was a nothing burger, but these people got loud and angry anyway. And then the studio would pander to them. They'd get scared. Oh no, we're going to lose money, or something's going to happen. It'll be bad if we don't listen to this clear majority online, when really it is just a few deranged weirdos. They're just loud. And the studios would pander to them. So hopefully those days are long gone. And if CD Projekt Red, the team behind Witcher 4, if they're genuine, if they mean well, they ignore the idiots and just do what they need to do to make a good game. Hopefully that's the case. But there are some signs that the deranged lunatics are inside the team, that there are some of them, and nothing can be done if that's the case. That's pretty bad, hard to come back from, because that brings us to this. Cian Mayher, who is a dev on the team, apparently pretty senior, so franchise and lore designer at CD Projekt Red. And this is the controversy that's gotten the most traction. So over the last few years, has said some things that don't suggest that their priority is making the best RPG possible. They've talked about punching gamers, I think it was, hates gamers, wants to assault them. Said things like this, where, quoting a Bernie Sanders picture video, where he said, "I am once again asking for you to stop being toxic little weirdos." And he's wanting to direct this at gamers. Gamers are the toxic weirdos. They need to be stopped. They're all evil. They're all bad. But I need your money. I need you to buy these games because then I won't have a job. That seems to be the same old cycle. So this person has done this a few times, not a one-off over the years, a pattern of behavior of just being angry at his target audience. He works at CD Projekt Red now. And honestly, this part is a little bit of a tough one because I don't want to be just going to the other end of the extreme, where for years it was like, oh my god, some game developer liked the tweet of Trump or someone else. They need to be fired. They need to lose their job. We need to start a campaign to get rid of them. That used to happen all of the time, and it was cringe. Normal people clearly thought that was weird and didn't like it. So you've got to be careful where it's like, okay, CN said some weird things against regular gamers. I mean, he'd be talking about me, I'd say, people watching this sort of video. This is who he's directing at. He doesn't like us, basically. Just people who want to play an interesting game and not be pandered to with all this bullshit. That's what he's talking about. Does that mean that the person is definitely talentless, useless, and should never work at a game studio? Probably not. If they're genuinely talented and they just happen to have said some weird things on social media, I just don't like the idea of, at least in most cases, your social media usage being held against you when you're getting a job or you're at a job or something like that. I think it's kind of a tricky one. However, if he's taken this mindset into his job at CD Projekt Red, and he's putting this same sort of stuff, messaging, into the game, actively making The Witcher 4 worse by just infesting it with his own personal politics. There's zero diversity of thought. Everyone there is in that same boat. They're thinking like Cian, if I'm even pronouncing the name right. Then it's a problem, because then we know what we're going to get from the game. It's not going to be a Witcher 3 that's beloved and everyone's talking about it for years. It's going to be a piece of crap, you can all but guarantee it. And I wanted to mention this first, him quoting Bernie Sanders in his own way and so on. I wanted to mention it first because it's not even the worst of it. He's done something that I haven't seen it talked about quite as much. I think this is way worse than him talking about wanting to punch gamers. This is the most concerning thing I've seen related to The Witcher 4 so far, where this same person who talks about assaulting gamers and so on, he is, as this post reads, a defender of atrocious law changes in the Netflix Witcher. And now he's franchise and law designer for The Witcher 4, which sounds pretty senior. He's making decisions around this game. He's not just a random employee. And he wrote an article a couple of years ago where he says The Witcher Season 2 was right to deviate from the books. I don't know anyone remotely normal who likes cool things, who enjoyed the Season 2 of The Witcher. I'll be honest, I did not actually watch it myself. I didn't even watch the first season. I've been burned by too many TV shows. I thought, I'll wait this out. We'll see if it's worth investing in long term. Made the right decision. It sounds like it went totally downhill after the first season. And I think some people now even go back to the first and think, wasn't as good as people were saying at the time. Maybe it was low expectations or something. But people do not like The Witcher Season 2. And there were a few morons around that time who were defending it. But it always seemed to be political reasons, like someone like Cian Mayer, this law designer, he liked the people who were working on The Witcher. He liked all of just the little changes that were made. Like, let's have Geralt actually look like Geralt from the games, Henry Cavill, but all the women in the game, no, they can't look like Triss and Yennefer from the video game, for instance. They have to be Netflix. We can't make them look as attractive because that could be male gaze worthy. That would be sexist. But it's fine for Geralt to look exactly like he did in the popular games. I know they were probably originally based on the books and it wasn't about the games, but let's be real. The Netflix series would not have happened without the games being a huge success, especially the third one. That was the whole motivation. So that was part of what just made me not interested in watching the show at all. And to see this idiot defending the change for what is most likely political reasons. I don't think he even watched Season 2 or cared about it at all. It was purely about defending the identity politics side of it. The idea that the showrunners were distancing Geralt from the show at all, even though it was called The Witcher and it's meant to be about Geralt, sidelining him for other characters that people cared much less about, didn't care about so much. People like this loved it because they saw it as giving the middle finger to the right people. Men are angry that Geralt's been sidelined. That's a good thing. We need more of that. That was their motivation. Clearly does not care about The Witcher, really. The fact that this clown has got a senior role on The Witcher 4, that is really concerning. The amount of stuff that he's said and done in his previous role as a game journal, this is who's got a senior role, it seems like, a friggin' games journalist. That is really concerning. So the truth is, if The Witcher 4 is infested with people like this, and that makes up the majority of the team, I think it's doomed. I think it's got zero chance of being good. Even if I might watch that Ciri CGI trailer, I'll call it. They said it was in the engine, but it looked like a CGI trailer. Maybe that doesn't look so bad, 6 minutes, but I really don't care about that. I really just do not think that the game itself is going to be good if it's mostly this person, people like this working on it. I mean, if I'm coping, trying to be optimistic, maybe this person is a minority, and most people care about the game. They care about RPGs, making the best one possible, and that they've realized that even if they might have strange, fringe political beliefs, and maybe in the past they've tried to shove those into games, re-educate people, get more people on their side, they realize now that that doesn't work. If you want your game to be a mainstream success, if your priority is successful game, number one priority, not just their political stuff, if they care about good games first, maybe there's a chance, but it doesn't sound so good. And I think it's going to be management's job over there. This is where management has failed in a ton of studios. They struggle to contain people like this because these sorts of clowns have always worked in games. That's not a recent thing. Most of your favorite games had people like Cian on the team because some of them are good at their craft. Maybe they're good at art. Maybe they're good at writing or other things. But in the past, they weren't sort of allowed to let loose and just expose the worst sides of themselves in the game. That didn't happen so much because there was a diverse team, not of people's skin colors, but of ideas. People who had different ideas for a game, and people took the best bits. The game director took the best bits from everyone and made a fantastic game, got the best out of people. That's management's job, and so many teams have just failed with that. They've allowed the inmates to take over the asylum, basically. Management, many of the people there in their cushy positions, too scared to rock the boat, to speak out because, oh, I'll get fired and I'll lose my cushy salary. I might not get my golden parachute or something. It seemed like that's what's been going on with, like, Dragon Age the Veilguard. Like, EA's management is incompetent for allowing that to happen. Someone should have stepped in, put a stop to it, like they should have with Anthem. They didn't. So it's on management as much as it is the BioWare team. So I think two things can be true at once. It's usually bad devs, boots on the ground developers, who are a big reason that a game is bad, turns out terribly, but management have the responsibility because they can shake up the team. They can change things. And if they don't, and the game flops, it sucks, ultimately, they're accountable. Makes sense, because they greenlit all this. If the devs are stupid, get rid of them, change things, because once the culture is rotten, you might have to get rid of basically everyone. Start again, like we're seeing with a lot of studios. Again, BioWare, it seems like Obsidian in some cases. They've gone totally off the deep end. So a few isolated, semi-concerning things that I don't think are the biggest deal in the world, but I do think that CD Projekt Red need to turn the tide. They need to get people actually excited about Witcher 4, because I think people are de-hyped as of this week compared to what they were even a month ago, where people were genuinely excited about what The Witcher 4 could be, what could we actually get. Now people are unsure. They're a bit concerned, which is justified, given many of the red flags we see are the same ones that have popped up in games that have turned out to be absolutely terrible, focused on the wrong things. My advice to CD Projekt Red, stop doing these interviews that they've been doing. Stop any of this weird marketing, female V, no male V, and so on. Just be neutral about what you're doing in your marketing and stop communicating with the public about Witcher 4 until you actually have something to show. If you show off in a few years genuinely great gameplay and it doesn't look weird, people will get excited again. Stop making the same mistakes talking about your games 5 years before release, because it seems to be biting you on the ass. Hopefully they just stay quiet for a while, but we'll see what happens. Thanks for listening. I'll see you on the next one. Cheers. Bye.